Hey guys. Today we dive into a skill that feels almost supernatural, yet it is entirely human. The ability to understand anyone instantly. Picture yourself stepping into a crowded cafe. The smell of roasted beans lingers. Conversations hum all around. And without hearing a single word, your brain begins to decode. That couple by the window? One is leaning in, eyes wide, animated hands in motion. The other is sitting back, arms crossed, gaze wandering. Across the room, a young man checks his watch for the third time in 2 minutes, foot bouncing under the table. You haven't spoken to any of them, yet you already sense the mood. Tension, impatience, maybe even disconnection. This is the hidden language of human behavior, and once you tune into it, life changes. Suddenly, you're not guessing what people feel. You see it, you feel it, you know it. The veil is lifted, and the reality check? You've been reading signals all your life without realizing it. The difference now is that you're going to sharpen it, polish it, and use it consciously. Every interaction is a stage where words play only a small role. Researchers have long pointed out that the majority of communication is nonverbal. But here's the twist. You already knew that intuitively. Think about the last time someone told you, "I'm fine," with a flat tone and a half-hearted shrug. You didn't believe the words. You believed the signal underneath. That instinct is the foundation we're about to strengthen. Because when you become deliberate about noticing the small, often invisible shifts, posture tightening, eyes darting, hands fiddling, you start to uncover truths people don't put into words. Begin with baselines. Every person has a natural rhythm when they're relaxed and unguarded. It's their default setting. One person might naturally speak fast, another slow. Some use broad gestures, others keep still. If you try to interpret someone without first knowing their baseline, you risk misjudging them. Imagine you meet someone who avoids eye contact. You might think they're hiding something, but if that's their baseline, it means nothing unusual. The key is to notice the deviation. The sudden flicker in behavior is where the story lies. A normally steady speaker who begins stammering when asked a question isn't just nervous. Something has shifted inside. A friend who usually sprawls comfortably on the couch, but suddenly sits stiff and rigid after you mention a topic. Your instincts should light up. Something changed, and change is data. Think of yourself as a detective of energy. The body is always leaking clues, even when the mouth is trying to stay polished. Take the simple handshake. It isn't just a greeting. It's an energy transfer. Firmness, duration, palm orientation, all hint at confidence, insecurity, or dominance. But you don't freeze on that single gesture. You read it in context. A firm handshake paired with nervous laughter tells a different story than a firm handshake with steady eye contact. This is why the best readers of people don't obsess over single movements. They look at patterns, clusters, and context. Now, let's get more vivid. Imagine walking into a job interview. The hiring manager greets you warmly, but as you settle in, you notice their shoulders remain tense, jaw slightly clenched. They say, "We're excited to meet you." Yet their micro-expression, a tiny flicker of skepticism in their brows, betrays hesitation. If you were tuned only to their words, you'd miss the ambivalence. But with sharpened awareness, you catch the tension and you adjust, leaning into calm confidence, answering with steady pauses, matching their energy. You are no longer at the mercy of their impression. You are influencing it because you can see what's unsaid. Your mind might whisper, "Isn't this manipulation?" The truth is, it's the opposite. Manipulation seeks to exploit. Awareness seeks to understand. When you read people accurately, you don't just protect yourself. You connect with authenticity. You stop taking words at surface value, which means fewer misunderstandings, fewer conflicts, fewer disappointments. Think of how many relationships crumble because people don't listen beneath the words. A friend insists they're not upset, yet their silence stretches and their posture screams withdrawal. A partner says, "It's fine," but their clipped tone tells you it isn't. When you notice the signals, you have a choice. Ignore them and let distance grow, or respond with empathy. You lean in gently. "I can feel something's off. Want to talk about it?" That single sentence, born from reading hidden cues, can save a friendship, heal a rift, or deepen trust. To sharpen your perception, you must slow down. Modern life pushes you to rush, multitask, and skim surfaces. But reading people requires the opposite: presence, stillness, patience. The more present you are, the more you notice. Watch how someone enters a room. Do they stride in with head high, or slip in quietly, shoulders drawn? Do their eyes scan the room with curiosity, or dart with nervous calculation? Those opening seconds tell you more than the next 10 minutes of small talk. Presence makes you a student of detail. You catch the half smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the sigh hidden in a laugh, the hesitation before a handshake. Each detail adds to the mosaic of truth. The human brain is a pattern machine. Just as a chess master sees the board and anticipates several moves ahead, you can learn to see the flow of body language. Instead of isolated movements, you'll begin to notice micro-shifts. The lean forward when interested, the lean back when doubtful, the way someone's hands freeze mid-gesture when they're caught off guard. These signals rarely lie because they emerge faster than conscious control. You can mask your words, but you can't fully mask your breath quickening or your pupils dilating. A great exercise is observation without judgment. Sit in a public place, a cafe, a train, a park, and simply watch. Don't assign moral value. Don't assume motives. Just notice. That person pacing with their phone? Energy is scattered, maybe anxious. That parent holding their child close, rocking slightly? Self-soothing behavior, perhaps stress relief. These observations aren't about labeling people. They're about training your brain to notice detail. With practice, you'll start noticing faster and more accurately, even in conversations where you're actively engaged. Here's another reality check. People often think reading body language is about spotting lies. While deception detection is one part, it's not the essence. The true gift is empathy. By catching signals, you learn to step into another person's emotional landscape. You feel their nervousness, their enthusiasm, their fear. This makes you a better leader, friend, partner. You respond not to the mask, but to the soul underneath. When someone feels truly seen, they open up, they trust, they connect. And that connection is far more powerful than any trick to outsmart them. Of course, beware of snap judgments. A crossed arm doesn't always mean defensiveness. It might mean the room is cold. Rapid blinking could be stress, or it could be allergies. The art is in pattern recognition. One signal alone is noise. Clusters create meaning. For example, if someone avoids eye contact while fidgeting and speaking quickly, the cluster hints at anxiety, but eye avoidance alone, insufficient. Think of signals as musical notes. One note doesn't make a song. A cluster forms the melody. Culture also shapes behavior. In some cultures, avoiding eye contact is respect, not deception. In others, firm handshakes are expected, while elsewhere they may feel aggressive. This is why the baseline principle is so vital. You must understand not only the person, but the context in which they operate. Otherwise, you risk projecting your own assumptions onto them. Let's weave in a story to bring this alive. A friend of mine once walked into a negotiation. Across the table sat a potential business partner, smiling politely. Everything seemed smooth. But my friend noticed subtle signals. The partner's foot tapping rapidly under the table, the hands rubbing together between sentences. The smile held a fraction too long. Instead of pushing forward, my friend paused, shifted tone, and asked a simple, "Is there something you're unsure about?" The partner blinked rapidly, then confessed doubts about a clause in the contract. That moment of honesty transformed the meeting. What could have been a failed deal became a collaboration, because someone paid attention to the signals most people ignore. The hidden language of behavior isn't about suspicion, it's about curiosity. You approach each person like a book waiting to be read, each gesture a word, each expression a sentence. Over time, you begin to read faster, deeper, with more nuance. And here's the magic. As you learn to read others, you also learn to read yourself. You notice when your shoulders tense, when your smile doesn't reach your eyes, when your voice sharpens out of stress. This self-awareness not only improves your relationships, it transforms your confidence. Because when you can name your own signals, you can manage them. You're no longer hijacked by nerves or blind to your own tension. You step into conversations with clarity. Think of leaders you admire. Often, their power isn't in what they say, but in how they carry themselves. They walk into a room and you feel their presence before they speak. That presence comes from alignment. Their words, tone, body language, and energy sing the same song. You trust them because there's no dissonance. By learning the hidden signals of behavior, you can cultivate the same alignment. You become a person others sense as authentic, grounded, trustworthy. Now pause for a moment. Imagine the advantage you gain when you can walk into any space and sense the emotional climate instantly. You know who's tense, who's confident, who's pretending. You can adjust, influence, connect with precision. This is not magic. It's awareness sharpened by practice. And as you continue this journey, you'll discover that people are not mysteries locked away. They are open books, waiting for someone with patience, empathy, and presence to read them. That is the beginning of mastery, noticing the hidden signals of behavior. From here, we'll go deeper into the face, the body, the voice, the mind itself. Each layer adds richness. Each skill makes you more fluent in the silent language of humanity. And each step brings you closer to a rare power. The power not just to see others, but to truly understand them. The face is the most revealing canvas you'll ever encounter. Every twitch, every flicker, every tightening of muscle is a clue. You may think you're skilled at hiding your emotions, but the truth is, your face is constantly betraying you, often in less than a heartbeat. Imagine standing across from someone in a conversation. They say all the right words. Their tone seems steady, yet in the smallest fraction of a second, their eyebrows rise ever so slightly, or the corner of their lip pulls downward. Most people miss it. You don't have to. Once you learn to recognize these signals, you're suddenly fluent in a language that almost no one else notices. A language of truth, vulnerability, and raw humanity. Let's start with micro-expressions, those lightning-fast facial movements that burst out before a person has time to mask them. They typically last less than a fifth of a second, yet they reveal emotions that words may try to conceal. You may notice a quick flash of anger before a polite smile, or a dart of fear across the eyes before someone assures you everything is fine. It's almost like the truth escaping through a crack in the mask. Happiness is one of the easiest to spot when it's genuine. Think of a real smile. The corners of the mouth lift, but so do the corners of the eyes. Tiny crow's feet form because the muscles around the eyes engage. A fake smile, in contrast, stops at the mouth. The lips move, but the eyes stay flat, empty of sparkle. You know this instinctively. You've seen a staged family photo where someone smiles only with their mouth, and you could sense the absence of joy. Sadness has its own unmistakable markers. The inner corners of the eyebrows pull upward. The eyes soften. The lips may tremble or pull downward. It's not always dramatic. It can be subtle, like a gentle droop in the eyelids when someone hears disappointing news. Fear, on the other hand, is sharp. The eyes widen, eyebrows rise and pull together, and the mouth often opens as if preparing for a gasp. Even if fear lasts only a flicker, it leaves a signature on the face. Anger compresses the face, brows lower and draw together, lips press tight, nostrils flare. Sometimes it's barely there, just a small tightening around the eyes, or a jaw that clenches for a moment before relaxing. Surprise, meanwhile, is a release of energy. Eyebrows arch high, the mouth falls open. Disgust wrinkles the nose, raises the upper lip, as though the face is rejecting a bad smell. And then there's contempt. The single-sided mouth raise, almost like a smirk, that conveys superiority or dismissal. You don't need to memorize these in a clinical way. Instead, imagine slowing down time when you talk to people. Train your awareness to notice the small flashes that happen between words. When you practice, you'll find yourself catching these micro-expressions in real time, and the experience is astonishing. It feels like reading a secret subtitle beneath every conversation. Here's a scene to picture. You're presenting an idea to your team at work. One colleague nods, smiles, says, "That sounds great." But for a split second, you catch their upper lip curl in disgust before the smile appears. That micro-expression tells you they aren't aligned with your idea. They may never say it out loud, but you've already seen the opposition. Now you can prepare, adjust, or open space for discussion before resistance grows silently. The eyes, often called the windows to the soul, provide constant updates on inner states. Pupil dilation can indicate excitement, fear, or attraction. It's a physical response beyond conscious control. Rapid blinking can reveal nervousness or stress. A fixed, prolonged stare can feel threatening, while an aversion of gaze at key moments may suggest avoidance or discomfort. When you begin to attune yourself, the eyes tell entire stories. Even small gestures around the face add depth to the narrative. People touch their nose, lips, or cheeks when stressed, a self-soothing mechanism to regulate emotion. Someone may brush their hand across their mouth right after lying, not to cover the lie consciously, but because the nervous system pushes them toward comfort. These gestures are like punctuation marks in the grammar of nonverbal speech. But context matters. A wrinkled nose may signal disgust, or it could be someone reacting to a sneeze. A raised brow could mean surprise, or it could be someone adjusting their glasses. That's why you always pair facial signals with the situation and with clusters of other cues. One spark alone doesn't prove anything. A pattern of sparks reveals the fire. To sharpen this skill, you need practice. Start by watching conversations on television with the sound off. Notice how much emotion you can pick up just from faces. Then, watch it again with sound and compare. Another exercise. Look into a mirror and practice expressing each emotion yourself. Exaggerate it first, then soften it until it's subtle. By feeling the muscle movements, you'll recognize them more easily in others. Once you develop this perception, something beautiful happens. Conversations become layered. You no longer just hear words, you experience the person. You sense their hesitation before they admit doubt. You notice the flash of sadness in their eyes before they say, "I'm okay." You feel the micro-anger behind a forced smile. This depth of awareness transforms relationships. In friendships, it allows you to support others before they ask. In romance, it lets you sense your partner's needs without endless guessing games. In leadership, it gives you the ability to read the morale of a room before anyone voices it. And in negotiations, it grants you a strategic advantage because you detect discomfort, resistance, or hidden enthusiasm before the other person even forms the sentence. The power of reading faces is not about catching lies. It's about catching humanity. It's about noticing the truth people often can't articulate. Sometimes they don't even know it themselves. A person may feel nervous, but insist they're calm. Yet their micro-expressions tell another story. By recognizing this, you can respond with compassion. Instead of challenging their words, you can offer safety, openness, or reassurance. You bridge the gap between spoken and unspoken. There's a humility required here. You don't wield this knowledge like a weapon. You use it like a compass, because you'll also notice yourself differently. The next time you're in a stressful situation, you may feel your jaw clench or your eyebrows pull together. That self-awareness lets you pause, breathe, and reset before others pick up on your tension. Reading faces is as much about understanding yourself as it is about others. Think of it this way. Every face is a living map, full of roads that lead to deeper understanding. Most people walk past without looking. You, however, learn to trace the lines, follow the curves, and notice the sudden turns. With practice, you stop being surprised by people's words because you've already glimpsed the feeling before it escaped their lips. That skill is rare, and it makes you magnetic. People won't know why, but they'll feel deeply seen by you. This is where trust begins. When you notice emotions people try to bury, and you respond not with judgment, but with acceptance. They relax around you. They feel safe. They sense that you are not just listening to their words, but hearing their hearts. And that, more than any polished speech, is what makes human connection unforgettable. Before anyone opens their mouth, their body begins telling a story. You can sense it the moment someone walks into a room. The tilt of their head, the placement of their feet, the rise or fall of their shoulders. Their movements carry meaning, often louder than their words. You've felt this countless times without realizing it. That moment when you sensed someone's confidence before they even spoke, or when you felt a friend's unease without needing an explanation. This is body language, the silent messenger of the mind. Think of posture as a billboard. When a person stands tall, shoulders back, head upright, they project confidence. When someone slouches, folds inward, or hunches, it signals withdrawal. fatigue, or insecurity. This isn't about criticizing, it's about noticing. Picture two people in a conversation. One leans forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked in. The other leans back, arms folded, body angled away. Without hearing a word, you know where each stands in the exchange. Gestures amplify the story. Open palms often mean openness, honesty, and willingness to engage. It's an ancient signal, dating back to when showing empty hands proved you carried no weapon. Closed fists, in contrast, signal tension or defensiveness. A person who hides their hands in pockets or behind their back may be trying to conceal nervousness. Then, there are the subtle self-soothing gestures, rubbing the back of the neck, fiddling with a pen, tapping fingers. These actions reveal inner tension, sometimes even when the face is calm. Feet, often ignored, are remarkably honest. While people consciously manage their faces and hands, the feet rarely lie. Notice where they point. If someone's feet angle toward the door during a conversation, they're mentally halfway out. If their feet aim directly toward you, you have their attention. Rapid foot tapping or shifting weight reveals impatience or anxiety. In a social gathering, watch people's feet, and you'll see who is eager to leave, who is engaged, and who is restless. Body language also plays out in space. Humans instinctively claim territory with how they position themselves. Confident individuals take up more space. They stretch, lean back, use wide gestures. Those feeling insecure shrink inward, crossing arms or legs, making themselves small. This is not arrogance versus humility. It's the body unconsciously protecting or asserting itself. You've probably felt the difference in meetings. One person sprawls comfortably across a chair. Another hugs their notepad tightly to their chest. Their bodies are revealing their inner state long before they speak. Mirroring is another powerful clue. When two people like each other, feel rapport, or share understanding, they often unconsciously mirror each other's body language. They lean in at the same time, cross their legs in similar ways, or adopt similar gestures. This synchronization creates harmony and trust. When mirroring breaks, when one leans in and the other leans away, the disconnection becomes visible. Now, imagine yourself walking into a negotiation. Across the table, your counterpart greets you with a smile, but you notice their hands clasped tightly together, shoulders raised just a bit too high. They say, "I'm glad we're meeting." Yet their body tells you they're bracing for conflict. Instead of charging in with demands, you ease into the conversation, letting your relaxed posture guide them toward calm. You've shifted the energy, not by words, but by tuning into signals others ignore. Culture adds another layer. In some cultures, standing close is a sign of warmth and friendliness. In others, it feels invasive. Gestures that mean one thing in one country may mean something entirely different in another. Reading body language is not about memorizing a universal dictionary of movements. It's about observing deviations from the baseline. What is natural for this person, in this context, in this environment? Clusters are essential. A single crossed arm doesn't always equal defensiveness. Maybe it's cold, but crossed arms, paired with a tight jaw, angled body, and downcast eyes. That's a defensive cluster. A person leaning forward may be interested, but if their brow is furrowed and their arms folded, it could mean they're ready to challenge you instead of connect. The truth lies in clusters, not isolated pieces. Consider a crowded elevator. Everyone stands stiff, facing forward, arms close to their sides. That posture doesn't mean everyone is anxious. It means they're respecting the social rules of tight spaces. Now contrast that with a boardroom where one person slouches, stares at the ceiling, and taps a pen. In that setting, the cluster screams boredom or disengagement. Same gesture, different meaning, because the context has changed. Another layer to observe is pacing. Watch how someone enters a room. Do they stroll casually, scanning their surroundings, or march directly with stiff movements? The body announces mood before a single word emerges. A slow, deliberate walk conveys calm authority. A quick, jittery pace signals stress or urgency. Pair this with gestures, posture, and eye contact, and you'll know more than any introduction could tell you. Let's step into a story. You're at a family gathering. Across the room, your cousin insists they're happy to be there, but their arms stay crossed, shoulders turned away, and their eyes rarely meet yours. Everyone else takes their words at face value. You don't. You sense the withdrawal, the discomfort. Instead of pushing conversation, you approach gently, giving them space. Later, they open up. They'd had a hard week, and your quiet understanding made them feel safe. That's the gift of seeing body language clearly. You connect beneath the mask. Leaders who master body language create magnetic influence. They don't just give speeches, they command presence. They stand grounded, speak with gestures that open rather than close, and move with deliberate calm. Their alignment, words matching posture and gestures, creates trust. People follow them not just for what they say, but for how they carry themselves. You can cultivate this same alignment by noticing your own patterns. Do you fold your arms when stressed? Do you shrink inward in large groups? Awareness of your own body language allows you to shift intentionally, signaling confidence and openness, even when nerves rise. Body language isn't about tricking others. It's about harmonizing communication. When your body matches your words, people believe you. When your body contradicts your words, people feel something's off, even if they can't name it. That dissonance is why some speakers lose audiences despite strong content. The body gave away the misalignment. By paying attention to the silent messenger, you ensure your message lands with clarity. Think of every interaction as a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, sometimes you step closer, sometimes you step back. When you see body language as rhythm instead of randomness, you learn when to pause, when to lean in, when to hold ground. This rhythm, once mastered, turns every encounter into an opportunity for deeper understanding. And as you keep practicing, you'll find the world unfolding in new detail. Crowds no longer feel like noise. They become symphonies of movement and posture. Conversations stop being puzzles. They become transparent. And you, no longer blind to the silent signals, move through life with sharper awareness, stronger presence, and richer connection. Words are powerful, but it's the voice that gives them life. The tone, pitch, rhythm, and pauses of speech carry far more weight than most people realize. You've experienced this yourself. Someone says, "I'm fine," but the clipped sharpness in their voice tells you they're anything but fine. Another person whispers a simple, "Thank you," and the softness, the crack in their tone, makes it feel more meaningful than 1,000 rehearsed speeches. The voice is the hidden soundtrack of every conversation, revealing emotions people try to bury. Think of the human voice as an instrument. Just as a violin can produce sharp, tense notes or warm, flowing melodies, So too can a voice communicate confidence, fear, authority, or vulnerability. When you tune your ear to listen beyond words, you begin to hear the truth layered in every sentence. Pitch is one of the most telling aspects. Under pressure, most people's voices rise slightly, the pitch climbing as tension tightens the vocal cords. That's why nervous speakers sound shrill or strained. In contrast, when someone is calm and grounded, their pitch tends to stay steady, often a bit lower, which comes across as confident and trustworthy. But here's the key. You must compare it to their baseline. Some people naturally speak in higher tones. What matters is the shift. If someone who usually has a smooth, even tone suddenly spikes upward in pitch when answering a question, that's your cue to pay attention. Volume, too, carries emotional fingerprints. A voice that suddenly grows louder may reveal anger, excitement, or the urge to dominate. A voice that drops to a near whisper can suggest secrecy, shame, or vulnerability. Neither extreme is inherently good or bad. It's the timing that matters. A colleague who raises their volume when passionately describing a vision may simply be enthusiastic. The same increase in volume during a tense disagreement may signal defensiveness or aggression. Then, there's pace. Fast talkers can come across as energetic and engaging, but sudden bursts of rapid speech often signal nervousness or the attempt to rush past uncomfortable topics. Slower speech, on the other hand, may show thoughtfulness, or it may indicate hesitation, as though the speaker is choosing words carefully. When someone who usually speaks briskly begins dragging their words, that slowdown is telling you something has shifted inside. The rhythm of speech is another treasure trove. People who are confident tend to use deliberate pacing, with natural pauses that allow their words to sink in. Those who are anxious often fill the space with or rush through sentences to avoid silence. But silence itself is revealing. A pause before answering a simple question may signal hesitation or the effort to conceal. A pause after an emotional statement can be an invitation for connection. Silence is not empty. It's charged with meaning, if you're willing to listen. Imagine you're in a job interview. You ask the candidate about a challenge they overcame. They start confidently, then pause, clear their throat, and their pitch rises as they answer. That combination, a pause, throat clear, rising pitch, forms a pattern of stress. It doesn't prove dishonesty, but it suggests discomfort with the topic. By noticing, you can gently steer the conversation, giving space for honesty rather than pushing forward blindly. Another subtle layer is timbre, the texture of the voice. A warm, resonant timbre can make a speaker feel trustworthy and comforting, while a thin nasal tone may sound nervous or defensive. These textures are often shaped by emotion, as much as by physiology. When someone is angry, their voice hardens. When they're joyful, it softens and flows. Listening for timbre adds emotional depth to your interpretation. And don't overlook vocal leaks. Under stress, the body reacts. The throat tightens. The mouth dries. The breath quickens. That's why you'll hear people clear their throats more often when anxious, or their voices crack unexpectedly. These slips aren't about illness. They're about tension. A sudden cough right before an answer might not be coincidence. It may be the body betraying unease. Let's ground this with a real-life example. Picture yourself on a first date. The other person is sharing stories, smiling, speaking fluidly. But when you ask about their last relationship, their voice shifts. The tone sharpens, The pace quickens, and their laugh sounds forced, almost brittle. They insist they're totally over it, but their voice betrays unresolved feelings. By tuning in, you sense what words try to disguise. This doesn't mean you judge. It means you understand. Listening to voices also reveals social dynamics. Dominant speakers often interrupt, talk longer, and use commanding tones. Submissive speakers may hedge their statements with maybe, I guess, or kind of, or apologize unnecessarily. I'm sorry becomes not an apology, but a habit of seeking approval. When you hear these patterns, you begin to see not just the words, but the mindset beneath them. Calibration matters here. A soft-spoken person in daily life who suddenly raises their voice in a meeting is signaling something important. A normally confident speaker who suddenly floods their sentences with filler words may be grappling with insecurity. By noticing these deviations, you can respond appropriately, offering support, asking better questions, or gently probing where others might overlook. There's also the beauty of congruence versus incongruence. When someone's tone matches their words, authenticity shines through. "I'm so excited," said with a warm, energetic tone, rings true. But the same sentence delivered flatly, eyes down, tone detached. The incongruence makes your gut whisper that something is off. Most people feel this instinctively but can't articulate why. You'll know, because you've trained your ear. To practice, try active listening exercises. Record conversations and play them back, not to analyze content, but to hear how the voice flows. Notice when people pause, when their pitch shifts, when fillers creep in. You'll start hearing patterns you missed in real time. Then, practice in your own life. Ask a friend how their day was, and listen not to the words, but to the way the words are carried. Do they sound lighter, heavier, rushed, hesitant? Often, the real answer lies in the sound, not the sentence. This awareness transforms communication. In business, it makes you a more effective negotiator because you catch hesitation before agreements falter. In relationships, it makes you a more attentive partner because you hear pain behind the mask of "I'm fine." In friendships, it makes you the person others feel safe confiding in because you notice without being told. And perhaps most importantly, it deepens your relationship with yourself. You begin to hear your own stress in your voice before it overwhelms you. You catch yourself rushing, apologizing too much, or speaking in a tone that doesn't align with your true feelings. That self-awareness is power. It allows you to realign, to speak with presence, to let your voice carry authenticity. The voice is never just sound. It is energy, vibration, and truth woven together. When you learn to hear beyond the words, you uncover a hidden layer of every interaction. It's like reading subtitles beneath the dialogue of life. Once you master this, you'll never hear speech the same way again. Instead of just listening, you'll truly understand. Lying is as old as language itself. People tell lies to protect themselves, to escape consequences, to gain advantage, or sometimes just to smooth over uncomfortable moments. You've done it too, in small ways. Saying you liked a gift when you didn't, insisting you weren't upset when you clearly were. The point isn't to shame this behavior. It's to recognize that deception is woven into human interaction. What matters is whether you can spot it when the stakes are high. Because lies, no matter how carefully crafted, leave traces. The body, the voice, the timing. Something always gives. Think about the mental load of lying. To tell a lie, The brain must juggle multiple tasks at once: create a story, suppress the truth, monitor the listener's reaction, and keep the body language consistent. That cognitive juggling act creates stress, and stress leaks out. You might see it in a pause that lingers just a fraction too long, in a hand that fidgets when it should be still, in a voice that suddenly rises in pitch. These are not smoking guns, but they are signals. Signals that the truth and the story are out of sync. One of the clearest giveaways is timing. A truthful response usually comes quickly because it's drawn straight from memory. A lie often arrives with a slight delay. Picture asking someone, "Where were you last night?" If they repeat the question, "Where was I last night?" or pause before answering, their mind is buying time to build a believable version of events. It's subtle, but the pause itself is a crack in the facade. Language provides its own red flags. Liars often distance themselves from their own story. Instead of saying, "I didn't break the vase," they might say, "The vase wasn't broken by me." That shift away from personal pronouns softens their connection to the lie. Another common tactic is overloading details. Truth is usually simple. Lies often sprawl, stuffed with unnecessary description to sound convincing. "I got home at exactly 8:47. I made pasta with olive oil, garlic, 2 teaspoons of pepper, and then I sat down on the left side of the couch to watch the news." That flood of detail feels rehearsed rather than natural. Watch the hands. Truthful speakers use gestures that align naturally with their words. Deceptive speakers often limit their movements, fearing that too much motion might expose them. Or, on the other end, their hands betray agitation, rubbing palms, touching the face, fidgeting with objects. The face is another leaky container. A forced smile may slip for a moment, replaced by a micro-expression of fear or anger. A smirk may flash before someone insists on innocence. These micro-moments don't last long, but they reveal the struggle between the lie and the truth. The voice carries clues too. Stress tightens the throat, raising pitch, drying the mouth. That's why liars often clear their throats, cough, or stumble on words. A sudden change in tone, too calm, too flat, or too polished, can be as revealing as a nervous stammer. And then there are the fillers. To be honest, I swear. Truth usually flows simply. Lies often need scaffolding, and that scaffolding shows up in verbal clutter. But here's the warning. No single sign proves deception. People fidget when they're nervous, not just when they lie. Some people avoid eye contact out of shyness, not dishonesty. If you cling to one sign, you'll misjudge. The skill lies in noticing clusters. When the pause, the pitch rise, the lack of pronouns, and the hand fidgeting appear together, the probability of deception increases dramatically. Think of it like puzzle pieces. One piece alone is meaningless. Put them together, and the picture becomes clear. Let's bring this into a real-life moment. Imagine you're interviewing a potential business partner. They claim they're financially stable, but you notice their hands clasp tightly, their voice cracks slightly, and their story grows overly detailed about irrelevant expenses. Your instinct says something doesn't align. Instead of accusing them directly, you ask the same question in a different way later. Their story shifts slightly. That inconsistency, paired with the earlier signals, confirms your suspicion. You've avoided a dangerous mistake, not by intuition alone, but by reading the leaks of deception. Professionals use similar techniques. Investigators often ask subjects to tell a story backward, or to describe details from different angles. This forces the brain to work harder, making it tougher to maintain a lie consistently. You may not use formal interrogation in daily life, but you can borrow the principle. Ask questions from new angles, give silence instead of rushing, and watch how the story holds up. Truth tends to stay steady. Lies wobble under pressure. The most powerful indicator of deception is incongruence, when words and signals don't match. Someone says, "I'm confident in that decision," but their body shrinks inward, their eyes dart, their voice trembles. That mismatch creates a gut feeling that something is off. You've felt it before, that sense you can't explain, but you know. Now you understand the mechanics behind it. Learning to spot deception isn't about paranoia. It's about protection. It's about knowing when to dig deeper, when to pause, when to trust your instincts. It shields you from manipulation, from false promises, from heartbreaks built on shaky ground. But it also guides you toward honesty. When you realize how hard it is to maintain a lie without leaking, you become more inclined to live in truth yourself. You start aligning your words with your body, your tone with your intention. Others feel that congruence and trust you more deeply. Picture this. A friend insists they're not upset, but you notice their smile fades too quickly. Their arms cross tightly. Their voice softens almost to a whisper. You could nod and move on, or you could gently say, "I feel like something's bothering you. Want to talk about it?" That simple acknowledgement, born from reading signs of deception or suppression, can heal a rift before it grows. In the end, spotting lies isn't about catching others in the act. It's about uncovering truth. Truth in others. Truth in yourself. Truth in relationships. Lies create distance. Seeing through them brings clarity. And clarity is the foundation of trust, the bedrock of connection. Every person you meet carries a deeper pattern beneath their momentary expressions. A frown today or a laugh tomorrow may reveal how they feel in the moment, but their consistent behaviors tell you who they are over time. If the face is a snapshot, then personality is the full-length movie. When you learn to read personality patterns, you stop reacting only to surface signals and begin anticipating how someone is likely to think, feel, and act in a variety of situations. One of the most widely studied frameworks is the Big Five personality model: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. You don't need to memorize these as psychology terms. Think of them as 5 lenses through which people's patterns become visible. A person high in openness, for example, tends to enjoy novelty, creativity, and exploration. You'll notice it in how their eyes light up at new ideas, how they lean in with curiosity instead of shrinking back in caution. Someone high in conscientiousness, on the other hand, reveals it through punctuality, careful planning, and a body posture that radiates focus and order. Extroversion shows itself in energy. Watch how quickly an extroverted person engages with strangers, how their gestures expand outward, how their voice projects confidently into a room. Contrast this with someone more introverted, who may keep their body smaller, speak more softly, and choose their words with precision. Neither is better or worse. They are simply different rhythms of human energy. Agreeableness, meanwhile, reveals itself in warmth, in the softness of tone, in the tendency to nod and smile to encourage others. Highly agreeable people avoid conflict, sometimes at the expense of their own needs. Neuroticism. The final trait often emerges in tension, frequent sighs, restless movements, a face that shows stress even in calm settings. These aren't boxes to lock people into. They're maps that guide you toward understanding. Most people blend traits from all five, with some stronger than others. By observing patterns across time, you see beyond the mask of the moment. Another useful lens is the DISC model: dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. Imagine 4 colors of energy. The dominant personality moves fast, speaks directly, and prefers action over hesitation. You'll see it in their forward-leaning posture, their clipped sentences, their intensity of eye contact. The influential type radiates charisma, expressive gestures, animated tone, eagerness to connect. Steady personalities are calmer, with softer voices, consistent pacing, and a preference for harmony. The conscientious type focuses on detail, often speaking more precisely, with smaller, controlled movements. When you start noticing these traits, you can adapt how you communicate. Assertive with the dominant, energetic with the influencer, patient with the steady, precise with the conscientious. Attachment styles also shape behavior patterns. Someone with secure attachment tends to relax in relationships, their body open, their voice steady. Anxious attachment may reveal itself in frequent check-ins, rapid speech, or nervous laughter. Avoidant attachment often shows in crossed arms, distance in posture, or flat tones when emotions rise. Recognizing these doesn't mean labeling people. It means understanding the invisible scripts driving their responses. Picture yourself at a dinner party. One guest dominates the conversation, voice booming, leaning across the table. Another quietly observes, offering a few thoughtful comments when space opens. Another laughs easily, gesturing broadly, leaning close to whoever speaks. These aren't random quirks. They're glimpses of enduring personality patterns. By noticing, you can navigate more gracefully, giving the dominant speaker space to feel heard, drawing the quieter one into conversation, riding the wave of energy with the expressive guest. The beauty of recognizing personality patterns is that it makes you less reactive. Instead of being thrown off by someone's behavior, you understand where it comes from. If a conscientious person questions your plan in detail, you don't bristle. You realize it's their need for precision. If an extrovert fills the air with stories, you don't take it as arrogance. You see it as their way of connecting. This shift in perception reduces frustration and builds empathy. Patterns also reveal potential conflicts. A highly dominant leader paired with a highly dominant employee may clash, each pushing for control. A highly agreeable person paired with a highly dominant one may struggle to assert themselves. By noticing these patterns, you can anticipate tension before it erupts, adjusting your approach to smooth the edges. Over time, you'll also see your own patterns reflected back at you. Are you quick to speak or slow to process? Do you crave novelty or prefer routine? Do you lean toward harmony or toward precision? By reading yourself, you gain clarity in how others experience you. That awareness allows you to adapt intentionally instead of unconsciously repeating old habits. Here's a practical exercise. Keep a small journal of patterns. When you meet someone new, jot down notes, not just what they said, but how they carried themselves. Were their gestures large or small? Did they interrupt often or wait to speak? Did they radiate warmth or hold back? Over weeks, you'll see themes emerge. This simple habit sharpens your perception dramatically. But remember, patterns don't excuse behavior. If someone consistently dominates and disregards others, understanding their dominance doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means you can address it clearly, with strategies suited to their personality. If someone repeatedly avoids responsibility, knowing their avoidant tendencies doesn't mean you let them off the hook. It means you approach accountability in a way they can hear. Awareness empowers action, not passivity. When you weave momentary signals with long-term patterns, people stop being puzzles and start becoming open books. You see the sparks of emotion in a face, the shifts in a voice, the posture of a body, and you connect them to deeper traits that remain steady across time. That combination gives you both precision and wisdom. The reward of reading personality is not control, it's compassion. You begin to see why someone behaves the way they do, not just how they behave in the moment. You meet them with understanding, even when you disagree. And in turn, people feel seen, not for their masks, but for their essence. That is the true power of recognizing patterns. It turns strangers into stories, and stories into connections that last. Imagine walking into a bustling cafe. The air hums with energy, people leaning in close, laughter spilling from one table, hushed tones of an intense discussion at another. You haven't heard a single word clearly, yet you already sense who is relaxed, who is anxious, and where the tension lies. This is situational awareness in action, the art of reading the room before you read the individual. So often, people jump straight into analyzing a single person's gestures or expressions, forgetting the context that shapes those signals. But context is everything. A man tapping his foot in a doctor's waiting room might simply be restless about the appointment. The same foot tapping in a high-stakes meeting could reveal impatience, frustration, or even eagerness to speak. If you don't consider the environment, you risk misreading the entire scene. Situational awareness begins with scanning. Noticing the overall mood of a room sets the baseline. Is the energy light and playful, or tense and guarded? Are voices rising in volume collectively, or is silence hanging heavy? These broad strokes prepare you to interpret individual behaviors more accurately. You're not looking for single anomalies yet. You're mapping the emotional weather of the space. Group dynamics often create invisible hierarchies. Watch where people's eyes land most often. That's usually the person with influence, even if they're not officially in charge. Notice who sits closest to the leader, who interrupts freely, and who waits patiently. Seating, spacing, and the flow of conversation sketch out the power map without a single nameplate. Social roles play out through body placement. In a circle, one person leans slightly forward, speaking more than others. Another mirrors nods but rarely initiates. One dominates gestures. Another retreats into stillness. These positions tell you who drives, who supports, and who withdraws. Recognizing these roles lets you predict future interactions. The one who dominates may steer decisions. The one who withdraws may need encouragement to share their insight. Awareness also requires noticing emotional contagion. Humans synchronize unconsciously. If one person enters the room with visible frustration, watch how others stiffen or lower their voices. If someone bursts in with laughter, the energy often lifts, even among strangers. By paying attention to the shifts that ripple through a group, you see not just individuals, but the collective heartbeat. Take, for example, a corporate meeting. The manager speaks, but you notice one employee across the table, leaning back, arms folded, lips pressed tight. Another employee glances at that person before responding. The manager may not see it, but you do. Dissent is brewing. Rather than focusing only on what's being said, you've sensed the undercurrent. That awareness gives you a strategic advantage. You can steer conversation, mediate conflict, or simply prepare for what comes next. Situational awareness isn't limited to professional settings. At a party, you may sense who feels left out. The guest lingering at the edge, smiling politely but rarely drawn in. At a family dinner, you may feel the tension between two relatives, even as they exchange polite words. In public spaces, your awareness sharpens safety itself, noticing who is overly agitated, who is scanning too intently, who doesn't fit the flow of the environment. These signals can alert you to potential danger before anyone else notices. But situational awareness doesn't stop at noticing others. It also includes noticing yourself within the scene. Where are you positioned? Do you unintentionally mirror the energy of the group, or can you shift it? A calm presence in a tense room can lower the collective anxiety. A grounded voice in a heated debate can steady the rhythm. When you understand the dynamic, you gain the choice to influence rather than just absorb. Think of it like tuning into multiple channels at once. One channel plays the words spoken aloud. Another hums with body language and tone. Yet another broadcasts the mood of the group. At first, this seems overwhelming, but with practice, your mind weaves them together seamlessly. You no longer hear noise, you hear patterns. Here's a simple exercise. Next time you enter a room, don't speak immediately. Take a slow breath and scan. Notice who is smiling genuinely versus politely. Notice who is listening intently versus scrolling absently. Notice where the clusters of energy form. Is the laughter concentrated in one corner? Is there a quiet pocket where tension lingers? Within seconds, you'll have a map of the room before you even engage. The key is subtlety. Situational awareness isn't about staring or overanalyzing. It's about expanding your field of perception. Soft eyes, relaxed attention, and open curiosity make you receptive without being intrusive. It's like switching from a flashlight to a lantern. You're not pointing at one spot. You're illuminating the whole space. And once you see the room clearly, individuals make more sense. That colleague's silence isn't random. It reflects the group's imbalance. That friend's forced smile isn't just about them. It's about the tension in the family. By linking the personal to the situational, you decode human behavior with depth instead of distortion. When you master this, you no longer stumble blind into conversations or decisions. You sense currents others ignore. You adapt with grace, choose your words with precision, and carry presence that steadies the entire room. And the people around you feel it, even if they can't name why. They sense that you get it. That sense of being understood creates trust before a single word is exchanged. Situational awareness is the bridge between reading people and connecting with them. It transforms you from a passive observer into a conductor of energy. And with practice, it becomes less of a technique and more of a natural way of being. Walking into any space with open eyes, open ears, and a deep pulse on the unseen forces that shape human connection. If body language is the alphabet and situational awareness is the sentence, then emotional intelligence is the story that ties everything together. It's one thing to notice someone's nervous tapping or hear the tremor in their voice. It's another to truly understand the feeling behind it and respond in a way that builds connection instead of distance. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, isn't just a soft skill. It's the foundation of human understanding, the bridge between observation and empathy. Think of EQ as having 4 layers. The first is self-awareness, recognizing your own emotions in real time. The second is self-regulation, managing those emotions so they don't hijack your interactions. The third is social awareness, reading other people's emotions through cues. And the fourth is relationship management, using this awareness to create trust and cooperation. Without these layers, you might be able to spot behaviors, but you'll miss the deeper opportunity to connect. Start with yourself. How often do you pause to notice what you're feeling before you react? You walk into a tense meeting, your heart rate spikes, and suddenly, you're speaking louder than you intended. That's emotion running you, instead of you running the emotion. Self-awareness begins with slowing down enough to catch the signals in your own body. Clenched fists, shallow breathing, tightened shoulders. These are your cues that something is stirring inside. If you can't read yourself, it will be nearly impossible to read others with clarity. Self-regulation builds on that awareness. Imagine being criticized in front of your team. The immediate urge might be to snap back or shut down. But with self-regulation, you take a breath, acknowledge the sting privately, and choose a response that protects both your dignity and the flow of the room. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about directing them. Anger can fuel courage. Sadness can spark compassion. Fear can sharpen focus. The mastery lies in steering the energy instead of letting it spill unchecked. Once you anchor yourself, you can widen your focus outward. This is social awareness. It's where all the skills you've been building come alive. Reading posture, gestures, micro-expressions, tone, and situational energy. But EQ deepens it by asking, what is this person feeling, and why? A friend snaps, I'm fine, but their eyes water as they turn away. Without EQ, you notice the inconsistency. With EQ, you recognize hurt, you sense the unsaid, and you respond gently instead of defensively. This leads to the final layer, relationship management. This is where understanding becomes influence, not manipulation, but the ability to create trust, ease tension, and inspire others. Leaders with high EQ don't just give orders. They sense morale dipping and adjust their approach. Partners with high EQ don't just argue. They recognize when to pause, when to listen, and when to soften. Friends with high EQ don't just comfort. They anticipate needs, sometimes without a word being spoken. Here's a vivid example. Picture a teacher standing before a restless class. The students are slouched, eyes glazed. A teacher with low EQ might push harder, raising their voice, piling on information. A teacher with high EQ senses the energy, shifts tone, tells a story, or even pauses for humor. The result? The room resets, focus returns, and learning flows. The difference wasn't in the content. It was in the emotional intelligence of delivery. Emotional intelligence is also your shield against misinterpretation. Without it, you might see someone's crossed arms and assume hostility. With EQ, you ask, could they just be cold? Could they be protecting themselves after a long, hard day? Instead of reacting with judgment, you approach with curiosity. That small shift, from assumption to curiosity, transforms relationships. And yet, EQ isn't about always being calm or endlessly agreeable. It's about congruence. If you're angry, EQ doesn't demand you plaster on a smile. It encourages you to express anger in a way that honors the truth without damaging the bond. "I'm frustrated because I feel unheard" is an EQ response. Slamming doors or icy silence is not. EQ makes emotions a tool, not a weapon. Think of your daily interactions. How many conflicts could be softened if both people paused to check what they were really feeling? How many misunderstandings could be avoided if people looked beyond the words and into the emotions beneath them? A colleague's curt reply might not be disrespect. It could be exhaustion. A partner's silence might not be indifference. It could be fear of saying the wrong thing. EQ invites you to see these possibilities. The more you practice, the more your presence changes. People feel safer around you because they know you'll notice what others ignore. They sense they can be themselves without being misjudged. And this safety builds loyalty, trust, and connection. In leadership, it inspires teams to follow. In friendship, it deepens bonds. In love, it creates resilience. Try this simple practice. In your next conversation, listen not just for what's said, but for what's felt. After they finish speaking, reflect it back. It sounds like you're feeling, and fill in the blank with your best guess, even if you're slightly off. The attempt itself communicates care. People light up when they feel understood, even imperfectly. Over time, EQ reshapes how you move through the world. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of judging, you empathize. Instead of clashing, you collaborate. You still see the micro-expressions, the tone shifts, the gestures. But now you add the most important layer: humanity. Because at the heart of all people reading lies this truth: humans are not puzzles to be solved, but stories to be honored. Emotional intelligence is how you read not just the signs, but the soul. And when you live with that awareness, every connection becomes richer. Every conflict becomes an opportunity, and every moment becomes a chance to understand more deeply. There's a voice inside you that whispers before logic can explain. You've felt it, a sudden tightening in your stomach when someone says all the right words, but something feels wrong, or the ease that floods you when you meet a stranger who instantly feels safe. This inner voice is intuition, and far from being mystical, it's the product of your brain's extraordinary ability to recognize patterns faster than conscious thought. Scientists often describe intuition as subconscious pattern recognition. Every experience you've had, every expression you've seen, every tone you've heard, gets stored in your mind like invisible files. When a new situation arises, your brain quickly scans these files and delivers a gut feeling before your conscious mind catches up. You might not know why someone feels untrustworthy, but your brain has already compared hundreds of subtle signals to past experiences and reached a conclusion. Intuition is recognition without explanation. The challenge is learning when to trust it. Intuition is powerful, but it can also be clouded by bias, fear, or assumption. Sometimes what we call intuition is simply prejudice disguised as instinct. That's why developing this skill requires both sharpening your awareness and checking your blind spots. Start by listening to your body. Intuition often speaks through sensation before thought. A chill on the skin, a knot in the stomach, a warmth in the chest. These are somatic markers, your body's early warning system. When something feels off, notice where it lands in your body. Does your jaw tighten? Does your heart beat faster? Over time, you'll learn your body's unique language of intuition. Next, link intuition with observation. Don't dismiss a gut feeling outright. Ask yourself, what am I noticing? Maybe it's the way someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. Maybe it's the slight delay before they answer. Maybe it's the way the room falls silent when they speak. Intuition often points you toward details your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. By slowing down and naming them, you transform vague instinct into clear awareness. There's also the flip side, moments of resonance. Have you ever clicked instantly with someone? The conversation flows, laughter feels effortless, trust seems natural. That too is intuition. Your brain has picked up on signals of safety, congruence, and warmth, and delivered a green light. These moments remind us that intuition isn't only about danger, it's also about connection. Consider a scenario. You're interviewing two candidates for a role. Both are equally qualified on paper. One gives polished answers, but something about their tone feels rehearsed, their smile too calculated. The other seems less polished, but their enthusiasm feels genuine, their body language relaxed. Your gut leans toward the second. Later, you discover that the first candidate exaggerated their achievements. Your intuition wasn't guessing, it was processing the incongruence between words and signals faster than your conscious reasoning. To strengthen intuition, practice pattern recognition. Watch people in public spaces without judgment. Notice how certain postures often pair with certain moods, how tone shifts match emotions, how micro-expressions flash before words. The more patterns you log, the richer your subconscious database becomes. Intuition thrives on experience. Feed it with observation. At the same time, test your gut. When you feel something, jot it down. Did you sense someone was upset before they admitted it? Did you feel distrust that later proved accurate? Over time, you'll refine your sense of which inner signals are reliable and which may be projections of your own mood or fears. This practice keeps intuition honest, grounding it in evidence instead of assumption. Be mindful, too, of emotional states. Intuition works best when you're calm and centered. Stress, exhaustion, or strong bias can distort it. If you've just had a conflict, you may project hostility onto neutral expressions. If you're anxious, you may interpret silence as rejection. That's why cultivating self-awareness, knowing when your own emotions are coloring your lens, is essential. Clear intuition requires a clear channel. History is filled with examples of intuition saving lives. Pilots who sensed something was wrong with their instruments seconds before a malfunction. Detectives who felt a suspect's story didn't add up and uncovered the truth. Parents who just knew their child was in trouble. These aren't superpowers. They're finely tuned awareness, honed by experience and sharpened by attention. But intuition also enriches daily life in softer ways. You sense when a friend needs a call. You feel when your partner craves comfort without asking. You notice when a colleague is overwhelmed and step in at the right moment. These small acts of attunement, guided by intuition, build bonds stronger than words alone. Here's a practice. Before entering a room, pause and listen inwardly. What do you sense about the space? Who seems open? Who seems closed? Afterward, reflect. Were your impressions accurate? The more you practice, the more precise your intuition becomes. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it grows. Ultimately, intuition is not about bypassing reason, but partnering with it. Logic gives structure. Intuition gives direction. Logic analyzes the map. Intuition senses the terrain. Together, they make you a master of understanding people, not just with your eyes and ears, but with your whole being. And when you trust that deeper voice, you'll find yourself navigating life with both wisdom and ease. You won't just read people, you'll feel them. And in a world where so much is hidden beneath the surface, that sensitivity is nothing short of a superpower. The human face is a theater of truth. Every flicker of muscle, every twitch of the brow, every fleeting wrinkle carries a story that words may try to hide. And among these signals, micro-expressions stand as the most honest messengers. They are the flashes of raw emotion that escape before the brain can construct a mask, lightning strikes of the soul. If you want to understand people instantly, training your eye to see these hidden sparks is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. Micro-expressions last less than half a second, sometimes no more than a quarter. They burst across the face and vanish, often before the conscious mind has registered them. Yet they reveal what the person truly feels: anger, fear, disgust, happiness, sadness, surprise, or contempt, regardless of what their words claim. This is why poker players wear sunglasses, why negotiators lean forward, why interrogators study faces with hawk-like intensity. The truth leaks through the cracks. Let's take each emotion. Happiness is the easiest. Genuine joy activates not just the mouth, but the eyes. The corners of the eyes crinkle. Tiny crow's feet appear. The upper cheeks lift. A polite or fake smile stops at the lips. But real happiness can't resist pulling the whole face into celebration. Sadness pulls downward. Inner eyebrows angle up. Eyelids droop. The corners of the mouth fall. It's a heavy gravity, dragging the features earthward. Fear widens the eyes. Lips stretch horizontally, and brows shoot upward, an instinctive attempt to absorb more information in a threatening moment. Anger lowers the brows, narrows the lips, flares the nostrils, and tightens the jaw. Disgust wrinkles the nose and raises the upper lip, as though rejecting a foul taste or smell. Surprise shoots the brows high, drops the jaw, and opens the eyes wide in an instant of shock. Contempt, unique among the seven, appears asymmetrical. One corner of the mouth rising in a half smile that drips with disdain. Now imagine catching these signals in real life. A colleague assures you they're fine, but you notice a flicker of sadness cross their face before the smile lands. A date insists they loved your joke, but a flash of contempt curls their lip for just a fraction of a second. A business partner claims excitement for your plan, but fear flashes in their widened eyes. These tiny slips are windows into the emotional truth beneath the surface. But seeing micro-expressions requires training. Most people miss them, not because they aren't visible, but because they vanish so fast, the brain edits them out. You can practice by watching interviews, reality shows, or even pausing movies. Look for those split-second inconsistencies, the anger before a polite answer, the fear before reassurance. The more you practice, the more your eye sharpens. Eventually, you'll begin noticing them in real time, as they happen in daily conversation. The danger lies in overconfidence. Spotting a micro-expression doesn't mean you've solved the puzzle of someone's heart. Emotions are layered. A flash of disgust may not mean disgust at you. It could be disgust at themselves, or at recalling a memory. A flicker of anger doesn't mean hostility. It could signal passion or self-defense. Micro-expressions tell you what is felt, not always why. Context remains essential. Still, the power of recognizing them is enormous. When you see sadness beneath someone's "I'm fine," you know to offer compassion instead of moving on. When you see fear under someone's enthusiasm, you know to reassure instead of pushing harder. When you see contempt during a negotiation, you know their words don't match their feelings. The ability to detect these flashes makes you a more sensitive communicator and a more resilient decision maker. Picture this. You're in a job interview. The candidate gives polished answers. But when you mention teamwork, a flash of contempt passes their face before they smile again. Without this awareness, you might take their answer at face value. With it, you recognize the deeper resistance to collaboration. That insight may save you from hiring the wrong person, or imagine comforting a friend. They insist they're over a breakup, but a flicker of sadness clouds their eyes before the laugh returns. If you notice it, you can gently say, "It seems like it still hurts." That acknowledgement may open a door they were afraid to unlock, deepening your connection. The more fluent you become in this silent language, the more you realize how often people wear masks, not maliciously, but as part of the human condition. We smile when we're hurting. We nod when we disagree. We laugh when we're afraid. Micro-expressions pierce the veil, reminding us that beneath the masks, we are all deeply human. To practice, try this exercise. The next time you watch someone speak, soften your focus. Don't stare hard. Let your vision take in the whole face. Emotions reveal themselves in clusters, brows, eyes, mouth working together. By keeping a relaxed focus, you catch the quick flickers more easily. Then, replay the moment in your mind. What did you see? A tightening? A twitch? With repetition, the flashes slow down in your awareness, even though they happen at lightning speed in reality. With time, you'll stop thinking of faces as static images and start experiencing them as living landscapes. Every wrinkle is a riverbed carved by feeling. Every twitch is a ripple across the surface. Every smile, every grimace, every flash is a moment of truth trying to reach the surface. And when you learn to notice, you no longer take words at face value. You see the person beneath the performance. Micro-expressions are the bridge between the seen and the unseen, the conscious and the unconscious. They are proof that the human heart cannot fully hide itself. And when you honor what you see, not to judge, but to understand, you step into deeper empathy. You hold people not just in their words, but in their truth. And that, more than any trick or technique, is what transforms you into someone who truly sees. Some people wear masks, not simply to hide a fleeting emotion, but to bend reality itself. These are the manipulators, the ones who twist words, distort perceptions, and subtly pull strings to serve their own agendas. Understanding them isn't about becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone you meet. It's about recognizing patterns of manipulation so you can protect your clarity, set firm boundaries, and refuse to be drawn into someone else's hidden agenda. Manipulation often begins with charm. The manipulator showers you with attention, praise, or promises. It feels good, almost too good. This technique, sometimes called love bombing, creates a quick sense of trust. Your defenses lower because flattery feeds the ego. But then, slowly, the tone shifts. The praise becomes conditional. The warmth gives way to guilt trips or veiled criticism. What began as intoxicating becomes confusing. That confusion is the manipulator's first weapon. Gaslighting is another classic tactic. Here, the manipulator distorts your perception of reality. You remember an event one way. They insist it never happened or happened differently. Over time, you begin doubting your memory, your feelings, even your sanity. Gaslighting is powerful because it erodes the foundation of trust in yourself. If you can't trust your own judgment, you're far more likely to rely on theirs. Triangulation adds another layer. The manipulator involves a third person, real or imagined, to unsettle you. Everyone agrees with me, they say, or you're the only one who feels that way. Suddenly, you feel isolated, cornered, less sure of your perspective. This tactic creates insecurity, pushing you to conform in order to regain belonging. Then there's guilt tripping. After all I've done for you. If you really cared, you would. Manipulators weaponize kindness, making you feel selfish or ungrateful if you don't comply. What looks like an appeal to compassion is actually a bid for control. Spotting these tactics requires tuning in to emotional incongruence. The manipulator's words say one thing, the emotional undertone says another. They smile while delivering subtle insults. They offer help while making you feel incapable. They say, "I'm only trying to protect you," while clipping your wings. The mismatch is your clue. So how do you respond without being ensnared? The first step is awareness. When you recognize the pattern, you remove its power. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can observe calmly. Ah, this is a guilt trip, or this feels like gaslighting. Naming the tactic, even privately, breaks the spell. Second, anchor yourself in reality. If someone questions your memory or feelings, double-check with external evidence or trusted allies. Keep a journal, note details, confirm with others. The more you affirm your own perception, the harder it becomes for anyone to shake it. Third, set boundaries. Manipulators thrive on ambiguity. They press until they find a soft spot, a clear, firm boundary, spoken calmly, without apology, creates a wall they cannot easily breach. I won't continue this conversation if you raise your voice. I need time to think before I decide. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-respect in action. Finally, practice detachment. Manipulators feed on emotional reactions. Anger, guilt, defensiveness all become fuel. But when you respond with calm clarity, the fuel runs out. Picture yourself as a rock in a storm, unmoved, steady, grounded. They can shout, flatter, guilt, distort, but you remain centered. Here's an exercise. Recall a past interaction where you later realized you were manipulated. Replay it in your mind. But this time, imagine yourself spotting the tactic as it happens. Imagine calmly naming it to yourself and responding with clarity instead of confusion. This mental rehearsal strengthens your ability to respond differently next time. It's important to remember that not every manipulative act comes from malice. Sometimes people manipulate unconsciously, repeating patterns they learned in childhood or using tactics born of insecurity. Recognizing manipulation doesn't mean labeling someone as evil. It means refusing to participate in unhealthy dynamics. And this awareness protects more than just you. When you refuse manipulation, you model strength for others, friends, colleagues, even children watching you learn that it's possible to resist pressure without hostility. You become a quiet force of clarity in a world where subtle control often goes unchecked. Ultimately, spotting manipulators isn't about building walls of suspicion. It's about cultivating a shield of awareness. You move through the world with eyes open, heart steady, boundaries firm, and in that state, manipulators lose their grip, because their greatest power lies not in their tactics, but in our blindness to them. When you see clearly, you reclaim your freedom. Human behavior is rarely revealed in isolated gestures. A crossed arm might mean defensiveness, or it might simply mean comfort. A smile might express genuine joy, or it might mask discomfort. To truly understand anyone instantly, you must learn to see beyond single cues and focus on clusters, groups of signals that align to tell a consistent story. Think of them as chords in music. One note alone means little, but several played together create a mood you cannot mistake. Clusters emerge when posture, gestures, facial expressions, and tone of voice harmonize. When someone leans back, folds their arms, presses their lips tight, and narrows their eyes, the cluster screams defensiveness or disagreement. When someone leans forward, mirrors your gestures, nods, and maintains open palms, the cluster sings of openness and agreement. The more signals converge, the clearer the truth becomes. One of the most common clusters is openness. Look for relaxed posture, uncrossed arms, genuine eye contact, and a face that softens easily into a smile. The voice flows freely, without tension. Even the feet, often overlooked, point toward you, signaling engagement. When you see this cluster, you know the person feels safe and receptive. Contrast that with defensiveness. Arms cross, shoulders hunch, brows furrow, lips tighten. The voice becomes clipped or guarded. The person might turn slightly away, creating a barrier, alone. Each of these signals could be misread. Together, they form a clear cluster of self-protection. Recognizing this helps you adjust, not by pushing harder, but by creating safety so the walls can come down. Dominance is another powerful cluster. The dominant person expands into space, shoulders back, chin lifted, legs spread, gestures wide. They may invade personal boundaries, maintain steady eye contact, or speak with a firm, unwavering tone. Sometimes dominance is healthy confidence. Other times, it's overcompensation. Context tells you which, but the cluster reveals the posture of control. Then there's attraction. The signs can be subtle: mirroring gestures, leaning in, prolonged eye contact, playful touching of hair, or feet pointed directly at the other person. The smile here is softer, the body oriented fully toward the object of interest, while any single behavior might mean little. The cluster makes attraction unmistakable. Boredom has its own cluster too. The body slouches, eyes glaze or wander, sighs escape, fingers fidget with objects. Responses become short, the tone flat. Again, one sign alone could mislead. Someone glancing at their watch might just be checking time. But when the whole body echoes disengagement, the message is clear. Their mind is elsewhere. Seeing clusters is like reading sentences instead of letters, but it requires patience. Beginners often jump on single signals, interpreting them as absolute truth. Experts wait, observe, and let patterns emerge. 3 or more congruent signals tell a far truer story than one isolated gesture ever could. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you're in conversation, try to identify the cluster of behaviors rather than a single sign. Ask yourself, is this person showing openness, defensiveness, dominance, attraction, or boredom? Notice how the signals group together. Over time, your brain begins to categorize automatically, just like reading words instead of spelling them out. Clusters also help you detect contradictions. Imagine someone saying, "I'm excited for this project," while their cluster shows otherwise: slouched posture, flat tone, eyes downcast. The mismatch alerts you that something deeper is at play. Maybe they're worried, maybe disengaged, maybe masking resentment. By spotting the contradiction, you're invited to look closer with empathy instead of assuming the words tell the whole truth. This perspective also protects against misjudgment. A single frown could mean concentration, not anger. A single crossed arm could mean comfort, not defensiveness. Clusters prevent you from leaping to conclusions, ensuring your reading is grounded in the full picture. What's remarkable is how clusters affect not just individuals, but groups. In meetings, watch how energy spreads. If several people display boredom, slouching, disengaged gazes, restless fidgeting, you know momentum is slipping. If multiple people lean forward, nodding, smiling, the collective cluster signals engagement. Reading clusters at the group level makes you not just a people reader, but a reader of entire atmospheres. As you grow fluent in clusters, you'll find yourself adjusting naturally. When you see defensiveness, you soften your tone. When you see boredom, you shift your approach. When you see openness, you dive deeper. The skill isn't about labeling others, but about harmonizing with the emotional music they play. In the end, clusters remind you that human beings are complex symphonies, not single notes. Every gesture, every glance, every shift in tone contributes to a greater story. By learning to read the patterns, you stop chasing isolated signs and start listening to the song beneath them. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. The room becomes alive with meaning. Every cluster another verse in the poetry of human connection. The journey of reading people doesn't end with noticing signs, clusters, or even intuition. All of that becomes truly meaningful only when you use it to build trust. Because at the core, understanding others isn't about gaining leverage or winning advantage. It's about connection. When people feel seen and respected, their defenses melt, their authenticity emerges, and relationships flourish. The skill of observation is not a tool for control, but a bridge toward trust. Trust begins with presence. When you give someone your full attention, eyes steady, body leaning in slightly, distractions set aside, you send a powerful signal. You matter. In a world where most conversations are half split between phone screens and wandering thoughts, presence is rare. And because it's rare, it feels priceless. The more present you are, the more safe others feel to reveal themselves. Observation deepens this presence. By noticing subtle cues, you can respond in ways that resonate. If you see tension in someone's shoulders, you soften your tone. If you notice sadness behind their smile, you slow the pace, give space. If you detect genuine excitement, you mirror their energy, amplifying their joy. These small adjustments show attunement, and attunement builds trust. But observation alone is not enough. People must feel that what you notice will not be used against them. Imagine confessing vulnerability to someone who then manipulates it. You would never trust them again. That's why empathy is the guardrail of people reading. When you read someone's signals, the goal is not to expose, but to honor. You're holding fragile truths in your hands. Treat them with care. Consistency is another pillar of trust. When your words match your actions, when your presence feels steady across time, people relax. They no longer watch for betrayal. They lean into relationship, even in disagreement. Consistency builds respect. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. Vulnerability also fosters trust. When you allow yourself to be seen, not as flawless, but as human, you invite reciprocity. A leader who admits uncertainty gains more loyalty than one who pretends to know everything. A friend who shares their own struggles opens the door for others to share theirs. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's an offering of honesty that says, "I trust you first." Practical trust building begins with simple validation. Reflect back what you observe. "You seem thoughtful today. I get the sense this matters deeply to you." Even if you're slightly off, people feel cared for because you noticed. Then, when they clarify, "Actually, I'm more frustrated than thoughtful," they experience the relief of being understood. Validation transforms observation into connection. Consider a workplace scenario. A manager notices their team is unusually quiet in a meeting. Instead of charging ahead, they pause and say, "I sense some hesitation here. What's on your minds?" That single acknowledgement shifts the dynamic. Silence turns to openness because the team feels safe enough to share. Trust is built not by commanding, but by noticing. Or think of a personal moment. Your partner says, "It's fine," but you see the flicker of sadness in their eyes. Instead of moving on, you gently ask, "Are you sure? I feel like there's more there." That second of attunement tells them, "You see me, you hear me, you care enough to ask again." That's the heartbeat of trust. Trust also grows when you respect boundaries. Reading people doesn't give you license to pry. Sometimes you'll see someone withdraw, cross their arms, or avoid eye contact. Instead of pressing, you honor their signal with space. Paradoxically, that restraint builds more trust than forcing closeness. By respecting their limits, you show that your awareness serves their well-being, not your agenda. The more you practice, the more your presence changes. People begin to feel lighter around you, less guarded. They confide more, laugh more, breathe more easily. Why? Because trust is oxygen. And when you offer it, others can finally relax into authenticity. Over time, you'll realize that building trust through observation is not about doing something extraordinary. It's about returning to something deeply human. It's about remembering that every person longs to be seen, heard, and valued. And when you offer that gift sincerely, you gain not just information, but connection. And that is the quiet superpower. Not just the ability to read people instantly, but to create relationships where people willingly show you who they are, because they feel safe in your presence. That's when the skill stops being technique and becomes a way of life. You've traveled through the hidden layers of human behavior: faces, bodies, voices, intuition, clusters, emotions, and you've seen how each piece offers a key to unlocking understanding. But the greatest revelation isn't in spotting a micro-expression or labeling a posture. It's in realizing that every cue, every flicker, every tone is the echo of a human story. And when you read people with empathy, not judgment, you don't just decode their signals, you honor their humanity. Mastery isn't about control. It's not about outsmarting, winning, or staying one step ahead. True mastery is the ability to stand in front of another person and see them clearly, without distortion, without agenda. To notice the subtle signs, yes, but also to feel the heartbeat behind them, to recognize fear and respond with reassurance, to sense joy and join in it, to see sadness and offer presence. This awareness transforms you. You stop rushing past people and start listening with your whole being. You stop assuming and start wondering. You stop defending and start connecting. And in that shift, relationships become richer, conversations deeper, and conflicts less threatening. It doesn't mean you'll never be deceived or misread, but it does mean you'll live more awake, more attuned, more compassionate. And that presence has ripple effects. Teams become stronger, friendships more resilient, love more enduring. So carry this skill forward, not as a trick, but as a philosophy. Every person you meet is a book waiting to be read, not skimmed. Every interaction is an invitation to step closer, not further away. And every moment of awareness is a chance to remind someone, silently, through your presence, I see you, I value you, I trust you. That, in the end, is the real superpower. Seeing people clearly and caring deeply.